as far as that bloke out at Badger Creek, not Badger Creek, the other joint, Wonga Pigeonville, criticising me, 3 sheds and fair income.
Yeah, the pot calling the kettle black, eh? Alright, 11 o'clock. Be quiet, you outer eastern fellow. Let's make a start. Good morning, everybody. And thank you for all coming up this morning on this rather dull, overcast, miserable sort of a morning. And I'll now read out the list, so get out your pens and paper, or your lipsticks, your thumbnails dipped in tar, whatever your paintbrush if you like, whatever you like, and write this down. After myself is John, VK3 Delta Quebec, followed by Drew, VK3 X-ray uniform. Then comes Graham, VK3 Tango uniform X-ray. Kevin, VK3 CKL. Michael, VK3 DCP. Steve, VK3 Hotel Kilo. And last but not least, Laurie, VK3 Sierra Juliet. One last listener and off we go. Not a sausage. Okay, as I said, well, good morning to everybody on this miserable day, and to all our listeners out there in Radio Land, glued to their radio sets, and to our many listeners on Paul's SDR, running the Homebrew 813 transmitter, about 100 watts into the antenna, and everybody is a fairly good copy this morning, which is a good thing. I don't have much to talk about this morning. Went out for a walk later this morning because it was raining when I normally go. And I'm just looking out the window now. The sun is shining brightly. So that's a good start for the morning. Other than that, I don't have anything much to report. So let's go around for the first time. Over to you, John, VK3DQ. This is VK3ARY.
Thank you, Roy. Good morning to you, and good morning to all stations and any listeners. Well, I've just been spending the time having a look at this venue for Moorabbin, Roy, and whilst I've found it all right, big, significant and everything, the issue is that I can't find anywhere near that joint there is a half-decent sort of car park, and that's going to be a bit of a worry about going down there, to be perfectly honest. I can't see any half-decent car park around there at all. It's got this new Kingston City Hall and complex of commercial buildings and not much space. So that'll be an interesting one to find out. Well, here we are. Everything's okay. The shower with the blonde lady's been, so that's been nice, and I'm just looking forward to another pleasant week. Now, whom was it that popped in after me? I can't remember. I think it was you, Drew. I think that was whom it was, but I may be wrong. VK3 X-ray uniform. If it's not, correct it please, Roy. VK3DQ.
Thank you, John. VK3DQ. VK3 X-ray uniform. Good morning, everyone. Well, it might be dark and gloomy and cloudy, but it's a pleasant enough morning. In fact, I've just taken my jumper off. Thanks for doing it this morning, Roy. We've had a pleasant weekend. We didn't go anywhere. Did we go anywhere? No. We had some of the family over on Saturday night, young Drew and his girlfriend, and young Claire, our daughter, and we watched a film together, which was rather jolly. We actually lit the fire last night, which reminds me, Laurie, if you need firewood, let me know. I'll even cart a load up for you if you want it. With pleasure. I'll take the scenic route. How about that? We've got tons of firewood here, just a matter of moving it from one place to the other. Although with the power barrow now, it's terrific. blokes haven't seen the power barrow. It'll carry 300 kilograms. It's got 4 tractor wheels and a tip-over steel tray, just like a miniature truck tray, dump truck. So you load all the firewood in there, start the engine, and just hang on to the handles, and it takes me and the firewood up the hill. So all that hard work has been taken out of it. Still learning how to use the new ride-on mower. That's a lot of fun. But man, does it grab the soil. It's a 4-wheel drive, 4 tractor tyre drives. And I have taken it down the hill, mowing grass all the way, and back up the hill. And it'll do the job. So I'll keep it. It's too bad that with these things you can't really... I did it all by studying all the different models, and I didn't ask anybody except the blokes at the mower shop down at Morton's, but apart from that it was a bit of a stab in the dark. But fortunately this crowd, the Massport, they have a film of it, and it shows the machine in use, and does it do work? So we'll try. The only thing that worries me is that the front transaxle and the back transaxle are driven by hydraulic fluid via a little pump which runs off the engine. The only thing that's belt driven are the blades, the cutting blades. So it looks like I've got to keep an eye on the transmission oil and all that, and the filter. I did a little repair job yesterday. It was frustrating but satisfying. We've got a Russell Hobbs kettle. Probably was once a good one, but the lid wouldn't pop up when you press the button to pop up the lid. It was damned annoying having to put your fingernail under the lid to lift it up, put some water in. So I took the lid off, got the lid off. You have to take the handle off, parts of the handle. Very clever design that. It's nicely made. The little spring, little stainless steel spring which is there to pop the lid up, of course had corroded, lost its springiness, and I had to copy it from what was left of the spring, and it took ages, about an hour, to make a spring to replicate the one that had rusted out. I can imagine trying to buy a new spring. Can you imagine it? Anyway, I'm proud of that. I've got a few notes here. Swifty. You know this colloquial term that was all around the workplace when we were younger was a foreigner, to work on a foreigner. There was also a Swifty. When you borrowed something intending to take it back, was generally called a Swifty. I've looked at Dave 3ASC's YouTube film of Barry's meter. If you're listening, Dave, very good, nicely done. Dave's making some very interesting, well, he's been making them for years. I see Les Hazeldean in one of the old films. G'day Les, if you're listening. 3X3SL. I was a little bit disappointed in that, Dave. You picked out probably the worst sample of Barry's workmanship to show Barry's workmanship. And it was a thrown together thing that Barry had made. I think he used it on this frequency. It was all right. It was very well constructed, considering that it probably was put together as a Bitzer. But the wiring's good. But Dave was kind of damned with faint praise about it. It had holes in different places. Well, it's obviously been used as a prototyping workbench sort of thing, a test bench. But he finished it and got it going, which is the main thing. So anyway, it's there on Dave's website, easy to find. Just Dave VK3ASC, put that in a search engine of some sort, and you'll be there. Lots of other things to say, but I'll save it till the next time. Over to you, Graham. VK3TUX, VK X-ray uniform.
VK3 X-ray uniform, VK3TUX. Right, this is the channel of the moment, and they've been making a discovery of it on Saturday afternoon. I had a look at it. I've had this problem where I've put it on going on for years now. We're on the bench, picked them up on the WH one beautifully. On the outer bench of the transmitting bench, for some time, and I've done all sorts of things. All bar was doing it. Anyway, I was listening to it on Saturday, and I thought I'll just check this out, because I had one fuse with the switch, the crawls was going out, and I thought, oh, here we go, new socket. So I thought, you've already done this. And I thought, well, what a one new socket coming up, so I put it on the stack and had a look at it, and just by chance I started to cut the filament lead as it went along. And lo and behold, the filament lead on the driving bottle, including the audio stage, wasn't just a dry joint. There were two wires that were connected to it. There was one on the top of the load and one on the bottom. One on the bottom of the load, when you touched it, went back down. Actually separated itself totally from the load and then came back again. So all this time I've had a filament that's been blowing up and down and up and down for God knows how long, giving me grief. Every time I tried, every time I put it back, bloody would take over, went great, get it up again, put it on the shelf, sorry, not the microphone then, put it on the shelf, it would never give me trouble. Once they realised starting those holes, people thought famous things were going off and they started working. Anyway, that's what it turned out. So never underestimate the problems with a faulty filament lead. When I do the lead, the first thing I do is solve the other leads up first, and then do the rest of them there. This occasion I also had a faulty one. One other thing I could bring up is just a moment of that really annoys me. I find it very annoying. I don't know if you people do or not. YouTube. Now, when you go on to a computer to look something up, and the other day I was looking at apps, we've got a whole range of Freddie's apps here, looking them up, I had to go pretty well through a page of YouTube sites showing idiots how to do everything, and all I wanted was some data in writing for people who are still currently literate, who can read, to the hard copies and put in my workshop. But these days, when you look up anything, it's all YouTube to idiot, and there's nothing where you can source is literate. I find that really, really frustrating. I don't know how anyone else finds it. Anyway, so I'll tell you what I've done, and there's my race this morning. I'll leave it at that, and I'll throw it over to Kiwi, VK3 CKL and VK3 CUX.
Good, thanks Graham, VK3.
Good morning to all taking part of the listeners we have. Thanks for looking after the session, Roy. And all signals here so far are pretty good except for Graham's. We're too busy. A big improvement, I mentioned this on Friday, I think that the last couple of times Graham's come on, his signal has improved a lot. Because recent times I haven't been able to copy him at all. But this morning and for the few mornings prior to this, I have been able to copy him to a degree, not 100%, but probably 70 to 80%. Unfortunately, I've hooked onto the Hall's SDR, but because of local interference into the SDR, the reception here on my own setup is almost as good. It's pretty hard to choose between the two. Anyway, all good. John, good, all your comments there, good to hear you on. And parking at Rabbit Town Hall, the Kingston Centre is known now. The HRSA had an event there about 10 or 15 years ago, I think. As long as that, probably more like 10 than 15 years, I think. And didn't have to walk a tremendous distance, but certainly I couldn't get parking near the place. I did have to walk some distance. Whether I would be happy about that, I'd have to think about it in the meantime. My current situation, the shower and the tension there, drew all okay for you, comments in the barrow, the mower, and the kettle. Russell hops, I've got a Russell hops kettle here, which I bought probably about 12 months ago now, almost exactly 12 months ago, and very happy, it's a nice little unit. Mentioning Dave's YouTube contributions, most of which, well, certainly his recent ones I've been looking at quite with a lot of interest, particularly when he was up north. And there was a comment on the TV news a few days ago, I think, that YouTube first fired up in 2005, and it seems a lot longer time than that, but I'm sure the report was right. Just upset because you get so used to YouTube, you think it's always been there. Did come in here Saturday night, switch things on,
to find that I guess it was the CQ Worldwide contest was on, so I lost interest fairly quickly. There was a lot of signals, not as many as it would have been years ago, but still a fair number of signals. Because I think the contest would still be on at the moment. Didn't even come in last night to have a listen. I'll have a check again tonight. Yeah, weather here, it's dull, although the sun's been trying to shine, but it's faded through successfully. A couple of brief periods, but at the moment a bit dull outside. It was raining lightly when I first got up about 6:45, I think, this morning. But I haven't bothered to check to see how much rain there's been. A few footy games over the weekend. I know some people are not interested. There's some quite big blowouts, big scores kicked against some teams. And I was surprised with Richmond on yesterday afternoon came out with not wearing sunglasses. Because I didn't realise until the announcer mentioned it, but yesterday's game for the Tigers was the first game they played in daylight, in natural light, since the 2019 Grand Final. So every game last year was at night time. And the first game this year was in night time against Carlton too. Anyway, quite pleased with the result. Not much more from here, so over to Michael, VK3DCP, VK3CKL.
Thanks, Kevin. VK3DCP from VK3CKL. I was struggling a bit with you, Kevin, this morning. You're just above the noise, and also Brian was not very copied well over here. Good morning to everyone. Thanks for running it, Roy. Even the 813 Roy, but only about 80 watts this morning for some reason. So I use a crystal controlled oscillator. I don't get as much drive as I do out of my VFO. I can push it to over 100 watts off the VFO, but not this one. So I say with a crystal oscillator. Okay, accumulated the rain overnight. Just going to put the ground a bit down. What's this back useful there? The handset no notice. I think he'll be up here rather than down there in the unit, so that seems to be good. Exactly where it is, and some of them look concerned about parking, but at the moment it's moving it. I'll probably have underground one, if you notice, they are taking the flyers for the answer, and also for the balance for the election, because of the RIO. I take time of elections, and I don't know anything about the candidate. I noticed two of the candidates up for election, and I actually went to the election really. We voted for it, and we won new director. Unless someone knows that's strong representation for someone, I don't feel that I can have to use the contribution to the ballot. Apart from that, absolutely, this seems to be good. It was a party this morning. We had a cat involved with cat curry. It was around the cherry tree. The cherry tree over the years has expanded, and it's doing some damage to the cage. Much to my reluctance, I was instructed that the cherry tree has to come down, because the cage is more important. You never have any cherries in a tree, just a tree. So I spent yesterday chopping the tree down, and this morning chopping the cherry tree up in the bits and put it in the bin. Anyway, that's enough from me. Over to you, Steve. VK3HKDK, VK3DCP.
Oh, it's come around very, very quickly. Morning, man. I'm busily typing away here on the computer. Yes, haven't been able to hear very well a couple of stations. Weather, yes, fairly overcast today. Took a trip up to Mount St Leonard yesterday. It was a beautiful, beautiful sunny day as we motored across the Yarra Valley, and then we started our climb up to the mount. And up and up and up and up we went through the very, very tall trees, and probably mountain ash, I would think, and grey gum, and other stuff as well. I don't know what. But anyway, up we went. Huge tree ferns, etc., etc., etc. Got up the top, jumped out of the car. Ah! It was only 10 degrees. Deary me. I know what you're putting up with, Laurie. Oh dear. I know you're a lot further down. Hang on. I know you're a lot further down, but it gets cold up that way. Oh yes. So anyway, we did quite a bit of bird watching up there and marching around up in the forest. Had a picnic lunch, and then we came back down again. And once again, it was brilliant sunshine, nice warm day. Very different up on the mountain, that's for sure. Yes, lots of cloud up there, and the occasional drizzle, and as we were walking underneath the trees, I'm sure the trees were weeping on us as well. Okay, now I've decided what I'm going to do with this antenna matching unit. Rather than wait and try and get into my shed, which I do occasionally, but then it fills up with something else. There's absolutely no room in the bench. As a matter of fact, the chassis and the whole works are sitting on the bench, but they're considerably submerged. So what I'm going to do, Roy, is I'm going to bring them around to your place. You can show me how I should fit this switch, and just exactly where I should put it. I think that'll keep you off the streets, and it'll give me some focus as well. So there. If you reject me, I'll be bringing it around to Drew's place, and he can show me. What else? This jolly heater, the gas heater, which I've been having trouble with. I thought to myself, there can't be too much wrong with this. I have a cert for it, actually. You're saying to yourself, a circuit for a gas heater? What's he talking about? Well, it has electrical things in it. So I looked at the circuit and I thought, okay, well, pardon me, there's probably only two things that can go wrong with it. And one I knew was not a problem. That was an over temperature cutout switch. I knew that wasn't a problem. And the other thing is a gas valve, which I think is solenoid operated. In fact, I'm sure it's solenoid operated, so I thought it might be that. All right. Can't get into the gas solenoid because it's a great big block of aluminium something or other, and it's impossible to get out as far as I'm concerned. So I left that there, and I thought, lots and lots of terminal strips in there. Terminal strips? Don't know what, no, maybe they're not called terminal strips. You know, the little AC connector strips. Yeah, that might be a better description. Connector strips with little grub screws in the top. Put the wire in, tighten it up, and away you go. Quite a few of those in there. I thought, how about if I give them a little bit of a tweak? So several of them, I found that they were so loose that the wires just fell out when I touched them. So anyway, cut a long story shorter, I tightened the thing up, and now the blooming thing goes again. So there you go. How much longer it keeps going, I don't know. What time is it? Oh, I've still got bags of time, 11:23. Yeah, so I installed that, or I and my brother-in-law installed that in 1988, so it's had a pretty fair run. Bravest Buffalo, built to last, mate. Talk about built to last. Okay, now who's after me? It was Laurie. What do you do? How come you're after me, Laurie? You're always much earlier. Anyway, across to you, VK3SJ. This is VK3HK.
Thanks, Steve. VK3HK, VK3SJ. Well, very good morning to everyone from Death Valley this morning. Very, very cold and wet. It has been raining all morning, and not a great deal. It's more a drizzly sort of rain. I take it you've got the same up your way, Graham. You're not that far from me, but very, very wintry here today, as you pointed out yesterday there, Steve. That it can be very, very cold here, and as Glenda will inform you, having grown up in this area, she would certainly know how cold it gets here. In our case, because we've got Mount Donabuang behind us, the cold air comes rushing on straight into the valley, and that is the reason why it's always colder here than just about anywhere else in the area. Well, what's happening here? Well, I've had a fairly busy day today. I started building this antique replica ABC announcers panel. It's been an itch I've been wanting to scratch for a while, and the other thing, of course, having never actually ever seen one in the flesh myself, I took the pictures out of as a reference in the PG Radio 1 manual. And basically I knew the size of the knobs. I knew they were 55mm across, and I was able to scale the whole thing from there. So basically the metalwork is done. It's partly constructed at the moment, and when it's all painted up and everything else, it'll look and function identically to the announcer desks that were used in the ABC, and the plan is to actually use it outside as my outside broadcasting position, so I can go back to operating, well, when spring comes along, in the sun out on the back veranda. However, it has presented a few frustrations, and again it comes back to these PNG type lever switches, which I require 10 for the job. I've got 4. And then my frustration started. Well, I found some in Sydney. It's in an old switchboard that they've got up there, but they want an arm and a leg switchboard and won't post it anyway. There's another one over in Western Australia, which has got about 20 keys on it. It's a reasonable price, but it's going to cost an arm and a leg to get it here. And I managed to source some in the United States, and they were going for a fairly reasonable price. They're the electric ones, but they, for all intents and purposes, they look the same and definitely function the same. So paid my money and everything like that. Got an email back yesterday saying, sorry, we don't deal with Australia anymore, and they refunded the money. So that was the end of that. Fortunately, I have a backup plan if I can't get these things, and that is to use the guitar type lever switches, which don't look the same. They're obviously not as robust either, but if I really get caught, I can go to those. So in the meantime, I am looking for those switches. I know you've got none left, Drew, but anybody who's got some, let me know. I think most of you know the type that I'm talking about. They're the old PMG lever type key switches, which, interestingly enough, a couple of years ago you could have got any of them anywhere, but now they seem to have dried up. And our good friends in surplus parts of Nebraska have got them, but they're wanting an astronomical amount of money for them. And in fact, if I was to buy a set from them, it would cost me nearly $400. So I think I'll give that one a bit of a miss, and they're not quite the same as the Australian PNG type. In any case, I did manage to get the lamps, the panel lamps. If memory serves me correctly, they were the dual type lenses. Roy probably have a better idea than I would about that. But the attempt is to get it looking exactly like an original, and it's even valve internally. It doesn't use solid state components. I've built it pretty much the way that it would have been back in the day. I'm sure during that, Roy, again, you can probably tell me this, but I think the ABC built a lot of that sort of stuff in-house back in the 40s and the 50s. So yeah, so that's what I've been doing all this weekend. I've also had an email from Henry, which I've just replied to, and Henry is going ahead to try and make his way onto this band, and wish you all the success possible, Henry. So anyway, with that, it's back over to you, Roy. VK3ARY to take it, VK3SJ, and thanks for doing it, Roy.
Okay, thanks, Rory. K3SJ. This is VK3ARY. In answer to your question, Rory, as you probably know, the PMG looked after the ABC studio facilities until I think it was early 1960s from what I remember, and they used scads and scads of those switches in the studios. And I was just thinking, I had a lot of them at one stage, and I think I tossed them all out, mainly because I couldn't see any use for them. And I think that's pretty much the case why you're having so much trouble finding the things. They're simply, you know, probably in most cases were pulled apart for the brass and bits and pieces in them, and just sent off to the scrap metal dealers. Shocking waste, but that's just the way it was. Now, what else? Parking down at the Melbourne Town Hall, or whatever it's called these days. Yeah, I agree with you. When I remember going to that HRSA thing down there, it was probably about 10 years ago, but I think that was the town hall. And I'm pretty sure the town hall's been put down and this new place has been put up in its place. But having said that, if you read their, if you have a look at their website, they claim they can seat 1,000 people at a sit-down lunch. Now, if you've got 1,000 people there, they're going to have 400 or 500 cars, and as you and anybody else knows, there is no way you can park 400 or 500 cars around the Pearl Highway and places like that, because this place is right in the middle of a busy shopping, industrial type area. It's a madhouse on a Saturday morning, so there is no way known you'd have to parking outside. So somewhere or other down there, John, there is parking. There's no doubt about that, and I agree with you, Kevin. There was plenty when I went down there. We didn't have to park out in the street. Now, Stephen, forget coming over with your procrastinator, and do you really want me to tell you what to do with that switch? I couldn't possibly say on the air. I get rubbed out, I think. So let's go around again. You, John, VK3DQ. This is VK3ARY.
I think that was very unkind of you, telling Steve to do his procrastination meter. Very unkind. VK3ARY from VK3DQ. Well, morning once again, everybody. Well, I've not got an awful lot to say. I've been listening quietly. I think the parking is going to be an issue, but we'll have a look. I can't find anything reasonable looking at Google Earth. Anyway, we'll have a look at it further on. All right, enough from me. I'm getting a bit puffed again, so over to you, Drew. VK3 X-ray uniform to transmit. Good morning, everybody. VK3DQ.
Thank you, John. VK3DQ. Just heard a bird call, you might know it, Steve, or others, but he stopped, or she. VK3DQ, VK3 X-ray uniform. Been scribbling notes. This announcer's desk project of yours, Laurie, sounds like a beauty. Have you had a look at the one that Dave's got? It's the genuine item, I think. Or I seem to remember seeing something like that in Dave's shack. There's plenty of YouTube films that involve that desk, so you can probably see it for yourself. Nobody commented on the the colloquial word is to do a Swifty. PMG keys. I haven't exhausted the possibilities, Laurie. As you know, and as Steve has experienced, I have a shed full of stuff which hasn't been sorted for a long time, and I think there's a junk box in there that might have some keys in, no promises. But you didn't mention model railway suppliers. The model railway layout people that like to have their setup as authentic as possible, they always have preferred the PMG type switchboard lever keys. They've been popular with the electrical setups of model railways for years and years. They were the preferred type and probably still are. So it might be possible for you to get something like that. Other people, Sato Parts, SATO, remember them? They made good radio parts, a Japanese crowd. They had lever keys. I've bought a few of those at McGrath's in the past. There might be some of those still floating around. In fact, they are very good. They don't have as many contacts on them, but they have changeover, probably 2 sets of changeover contacts. There were many configurations. There were make before break, changer, and so on and so on. As many combinations as there were relay contact combinations. They were configured up in the workshops where I worked. There was a section that put lever keys together for various specialised tasks. All this talk about Moorabbin Town Hall, I seem to remember the Moorabbin Town Hall as being a big colonial style, not colonial, Italian style red brick building with lots of windows facing the Nepean Highway. Has that building been taken away? It was fairly new when I was a kid. In fact, I remember when it was built. Good on you, Graham, with the... You could not dream up a more frustrating fault than a heater that comes up to temperature and then go down again. That is a real a wild card, you know, a wildie. I tend to agree with you, Graham, about YouTube. A lot of them are aimed at people that don't know anything about what they're doing, and they might even have misinformation as well. I believe that you can get paid for making a YouTube. You get paid by the clicks on it or something, hence the term clickbait. And they make there's several of them I've clicked on and had a look at it, and they're just making it up. They haven't done this at all. They haven't made it or done it or repaired it. They're just pretending that they know, but hoping to make some money out of knowing nothing. And I agree with you. To see the printed word, say the factory manual or the instructions from the manufacturers of the thing, much better than some Johnny-come-lately, a bloke that thinks he can fix anything film made at home. Nevertheless, I will say a lot of the YouTube films are very good. I've found the answer to a few engine problems, small engine problems. Honda didn't have the solution that I was looking for at one time, which was actually a broken shear key on the flywheel. It was backfiring and the timing was all out. You couldn't start it without practically pulling your arm off. And the thing had fractured and the flywheel had moved, and there wasn't any mention of that. What was the other one? Oh, the spacer. The temperature spacer between the carburetor and the engine, the crankcase of an ordinary Honda engine. They all talked about the carby and the mixture and the clearing the jets and blah blah blah, and I read it till I was nearly blue in the face checking this YouTube, that YouTube. Not one of them mentioned perhaps you've got a crack in the Bakelite insulator between the carby and the crankcase. A crack in there will destroy anything you try to do with the adjustments on the carby. Nobody mentioned it. Anyway, another thing about this clickbait, I don't know about you fellas, but I love to watch manufacturing processes or repair processes, particularly from India, where they have to use every part of their body. They squat on the floor and hold the job with their feet and everything. It's really in the raw. But there's a lot made, I suspect they're made in China, and it's clickbait. It works on me. There's some really attractive lady taking the tyre off a truck or spinning the nuts on or working, and she's in shorts and it looks terrific, and you click on that, she's not in it. It's just to make you click on it. Who's been caught with that one? ABC Desk. Steve, built to last. Why have I written that down, Steve? You said something that built to last. Oh, the heater. Last how long? That's one of those open-ended things, isn't it? Last a lifetime. Whose lifetime? A tortoise or turtle lifetime? A whale's lifetime? The lifetime of a fly? They can just wriggle out of it. I think I've said enough. Oh, tonight, ABC, I think at 9:30. You might have to find the ABC on your TV if you want to watch this lorry. It probably will work on that. 100 Years of the Royal Australian Air Force. A doco. Looks like a good one. For once, TV is going to provide a program for the lorry that you may enjoy. And you other fellows, thanks for the session. Always interesting. Enjoy your day, fellows. I'll hand it. Nobody said anything about Swifty. Who remembers the terms? Oh, Laurie, I did get onto Radio Spares, RS Components, ordered those chips. No worries at all. What a service they provide. I had a polite young lady at the other end, and she took all the details, and they'll be arriving pretty soon, the LM350s. So thanks for that. Thanks for putting me onto that. It's all in hand. VK3, over to you, Graham. VK3TUX, VK3 X-ray uniform.
Yes, I do remember the 50, Drew. The 50 was usually, there was something, after one, and we would do something else, so they said there was a 50 on it. And we were, of course, not asked by some of the recognition, so I know something we were doing, so we were 50, they paid telecom, and then now we were down the reserve, the rest of them was. Look, just while I was at this really interesting question moment, Laurie, those chips that you want, are they the type that used to be from the old telephone ranges, the up-down type switch over? Hello? No, Laurie. You there, Laurie?
Yes, Graham.
Yep. Laurie, are they the switches that you used to use on the switchboard, up and down type, over?
They're the ones.
How many you want?
How many you got?
Oh, right. I've got as many as you. I've got an old office switchboard here, mate, and it's got a nice razor, though.
Name your price.
No, that's right. Hang on. Maybe I might get those 6KD 630 or just see what happens. Anyway, right, I'll contact you after this, mate, and we'll give it out as 10.
Consider it done.
Okay, thank you, Wilbur. I'm back on normal now. Yeah, I've got one I had sitting out there for time, and I just remembered when Laurie said that. And what I've still got, I've actually go out and put my hand on it with my head. It's actually my steel shoe. It only has 2 shells used in it for radio. Weather-wise, up here at the moment, the sun's out. We weren't raining this morning, which is really pleasant. As it's pleasant now. This morning it was really foggy, but we didn't have all the rain. Laurie and I are about, only about 13 kilometres apart. So, it's still rather early to the moment. Quite high, open, there's a lot of wind still here. Laurie's going a little bit low, so it's hard to be there. And he doesn't get a job behind us. Everyone's getting out. Just as carrot. Now here's something to think about, Peter. And what are the chances of 50-50 dance with ball in the one and the one rock and roll in the other one. And that was running this Saturday night. I don't know if it went to the group. It was always very nice. Yeah, I'm not pushing it. I'll go more than usual. That's all I can do. So I'm going to go through. Simple, I'll go through to Europe.
Thanks, Graham. VK3TX, VK3CKL. Didn't get all of that, Graham, but got the reminiscences about the dancing in the Moorabbin Town Hall, and yeah, the place was rebuilt. I would say during the 70s or perhaps into the 80s, but more than likely the 70s, I think. And whether it's been rebuilt again since then, I'm not sure. It's right next door to the Moorabbin railway station, so I thought it was a very rough chance of getting parking there in the parking area for the station. Not sure if you're allowed to do that. Either that or catching a train, get parking at one of the stations along the line, north or south, and then catching the train to anyway, see what happens there. Okay, on the ABC TV program on the Air Force Drill, if my recorder still works on ABC, I'll record and watch it at a later stage. Michael, I noticed you were having trouble copying me this morning. It's probably no better now. And I can't say quite how well I was copying you because I heard you come back to me and say that quite clearly, but the doorbell rang just as you started the over, and by the time I got back in the seat again, you'd finished the over. Laurie's good copy here, a little QSB as we get close to the mid, but 100% copy on my setup. And okay, the new desk there. First of all, Steve, your description of your time at Mount St Leonard's, and Laurie, the desk, new panel you're making, and I'm sure I had one or two of those switches lying around many years ago, and I'd say that Buckley's chance of finding them there, they're probably long gone, I'd say. Loco and Henry getting him organised to come on the band, that'll be good, so if Henry happens to be listening by any means, morning Henry. Of course, anybody else listening on Paul's STR as well. Cheers all round, enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks for looking after the session, Roy. Cheers to all listeners, and over to Michael, VK3DCP. I'll see you how we go this time, Michael, VK3CKL.
Yeah, thanks Kevin. VK3DCP, VK3CKL. Still a good final. You're a bit stronger that time, Kevin, but I understand you're having trouble with me. But your signal improved that time, but still struggling with Graham. Okay, well, there's nothing much to add. No one's told me how to vote for the WIA elections, so I'm no wiser. And yes, I agree, Drew, the RWA still looks like to be a good one. The pity it's on so late, it's hardly prime time television, but I remember the RWS medical specialist reserves at 35 years, so I watched it with great interest. The museum at Port Cook is fantastic. Okay, thanks for running it, Roy. Should maybe on tomorrow, I'm not sure. I look forward to next time anyway. So this is VK3DCP stage 73, and passing it on to the USB, VK3HK, VK3DCP.
Okay, fine business. This is VK3HK. The day is improving. The sun is coming out. Graham, I've made a note of that adverse comment which you passed concerning me. You'll be dealt with in due course, as with all others who make adverse comments towards me. As for you, Roy, you'll be dealt with. Dear. Laurie, I'm amazed to hear your project, and very, very pleased too, because I can offer my services for the use and instruction upon this new board, old board, because I am a vintage panel operator from the ABC, amongst many other functions which I did there. Oh dear. Laurie, as far as having genuine switches, faders, dials, meters, whatever is concerned, don't sweat on it, mate. During my time at the ABC, I never sat at a panel which was identical to anything else. And in their training, in the initial training, they pointed it out, made it very, very clear that you would never, ever find two panels which were the same. So there you go. The oldest one I ever sat at was manufactured early 1940s, and the newest one would have been sometime in the 60s, early 60s. And as a consequence, there was one heck of a difference. You had circular faders, you had the up and down type faders. Oh mate, everything was different. The switches which you're talking about, or the switches, some had a circular actuator, others were I don't know, panel type things. Anyway, absolute huge difference. All the meters were different, or the VU meters, that is. Look, don't sweat on it, Laurie. Don't try for genuine, because there is no genuine. Okie dokie. Good session. Over to you, Laurie. VK3SJ. This is VK3HK.
Okay, thanks Steve. VK3HK, VK3SJ. Right, first of all Steve, thanks for your advice on that. I even know from Radio 1 there were a lot of variations on different panels, depending on where they were used. They were in a control booth, whether they were announcers, or whether they were in a switch room, and I know that there was a lot of variation. But the reason I've chosen the one that's actually featured in the Radio 1 book, you'd be familiar with Radio 1, Drew certainly has, because I know you've got a copy of it, Drew, I've chosen that for two reasons. First of all, it's the one I've got the most information on, and I know what amplifiers were used internally in that panel. The A, the B, the C, the M, we all pretty well published what they were in the Radio 1 manual. The one that's pictured obviously was made in the early 40s, due to the fact it's full of 5V4s, 6V6s, 6U or 6J7Gs and such like. So obviously this thing has its roots back in the early 1940s, and certainly looks like it's been something that's been made in-house. So if nothing else, you will see this thing and say to yourself, well, I've seen one of those in Radio 1. And basically I've scaled everything according to the size of the knobs, because I knew what they were and I had them, and I was able to scale the whole thing from there. So I expect the finished product will be within about 5% of the original dimensions. The type has rotary faders on it. It has the two microphone faders and the two pickup faders on the bottom. There's a monitor fader halfway up the panel, and there is the relay control, which I'll be using for receive. That goes on the other side of a single centrally mounted VU meter. And then you've got a switching arrangement for queuing and bringing in other lines into the panel, of which there are 10 across the top. They are the PMG key switch type, and there are red and white lights on it. From the photo, they appear to be the dual type. They look like they're about somewhere around about 14 millimetres from the scaling that I did. So for all intensive purposes, this thing will look exactly like the one that you'll see the photos of in Radio 1, and will probably perform exactly the same as well. So I'm using the same, well, pretty much the same valves in the amplifiers internally. The only difference is, of course, it won't be the rotary faders that they originally used. Those things are pretty well unobtainium, and if you can get them, most of them are pretty much worn out anyway. So I do have to compromise on that, but you'll never see them. So that doesn't matter, really. It's just a matter of trying to get the thing look authentic. And like anything else, if you're going to do a job, you do it properly and the best you can. And while I do take on board that there were a lot of variations, Steve, the thing is that at least I could say to someone, well, look it up in Radio 1 and there it will be. So there you have it. Anyway, thanks for the session, Roy. Fine job as always, and I'll look forward to catching up with everybody again soon. I'll dig out those 6KD6s for you, Graham. I've got a pair here that are pretty well matched, so you're quite welcome those. Anyway, with that, I'll say cheers to everybody. Oh, look, there was one other comment I was going to make, and that was regards to the video that Dave ASE made. The equipment, I don't think he actually made the point that it was roughly built or anything like that. It was actually quite well built. The quality of the construction was really excellent. No two ways about it. But I think Dave's point was all that for 90 watts and it didn't even quite work properly. And according to the oscilloscope, it didn't work properly. It did have a somewhat muffled quality to it, and it appeared that something was hideously wrong in the PA of that thing. But in terms of the power supplies, it was all very, very well built, except for the points that Dave pointed out, which was the location of the crystal, which you could take on board. Yes, you rolled the shaft, you would have smashed the crystal. And the other point that he was making was using Belling-Lee connectors to carry 750 volts. I think that was probably very ill-advised on Barry's part. But construction quality-wise, there was nothing really wrong with it. It was well built, well wired. It was it looked a professional job. So I will take issue with you, Dave. To call it a load of rubbish would not be a very good description of it. All the components used were quality, and also the construction was of a very, very high standard. There were just those niggly points, and this way, the best constructor in the world, there will be niggly points on anything you build. So, but the fact is he built it. The fact is he got it working. The fact is he got it on air, and that's more than you could say for a lot of it these days. So anyway, I'll leave you with that, and back over to you there, Roy. Thanks again for doing it, and catch you all very, very soon. VK3ARY to take it, VK3SJ. Cheers to all.
Okay, thanks Laurie, VK3SJ. This is VK3ARY. Well, we just hit before 12 o'clock, so well done. I'll thank you all again for coming up this morning for another session, and I'll close off the net and leave the frequency available to anybody who would like to use it. So this is VK3ARY. Going off and clear and going to have some lunch. So cheers everyone, I'll see you all again tomorrow hopefully.
After your comments, Roy, I'm very, very disappointed. I'm sitting here sucking my thumb and rocking backwards and forwards.
I can't remember which one of you showed it to me.
There was double then, Drew. What was the question?
Either Steve or you, Laurie, brought a sample of Barry's construction. It was a receiver for me to look at because I wanted to see it. Who was it, Steve or you, Laurie?
It would have been Steve. I think it was his Barry's wideband tuner.
Do you remember that thing, Steve? You've still got it, have you?
I do indeed remember it, and yes, it was I. It is with Roy at the moment. Roy was kind enough and good enough to manufacture a power supply for it, and although I don't think he's plugged the output of it into an amplifier, as far as I can see, it should work like a ripper, and Roy has it.
Well, the point I'm trying to make is that I think Dave has been very unfair to Barry. He probably picked possibly the worst construction job, and it was obviously experimental, and it wasn't the final product. And to make those criticisms of it, when we all know, or those that have seen Barry's workmanship, know that it's superb. So that transmitter was an aberration of Barry's skills.
That was the one he actually did use, Drew.
Well, never mind, it was not a good sample of his skills.
No, but look, but the quality of it was quite good. I think Dave's remarks were more to the fact that for whatever reason it wasn't working properly, and those funny little niggles that he did point out. But I do agree with you, Drew. To call it a pile of rubbish would be, that's far from the truth.
Well, I'm going to reiterate the Winston Churchill thing. Any idiot can see what's wrong with a thing. Can you see what's right with it? And it would have applied to that.
If you want to see a heap of rubbish, look at Herb's old transmitter. Bloody hell.
Disgraceful thing.
Well, actually, Herb didn't even make that, as it turned out in the end.
Well, anyway, that's my feeling on that. What we did see, the under-chassis wiring and so on, was excellent. But he didn't really make much of that. It said something like pretty good, wasn't it, Laurie?
Well, I thought the quality of it was pretty good in construction, and it was very Barry-like in the way it was built. The cabling was all nice. It was beautifully soldered. It was all neat. I don't see the problem.
No, I'm not saying it was pretty good. I'm saying it was excellent. It didn't get the accolade that it deserved.
But still, it's a lot better than amateurs that are just black box operators. And the thing, look, the thing could have, when he tested it out, it could have had a problem of some. It clearly had a problem of some description. But that's not to say that it had that problem when he had it on air.
Quite so, and I think you're missing my point. If you want to show an example of Barry, not the transmitter, it seems that the only qualification Dave has in this aspect is to talk about a mitter. Mitters, it's a mitter. What about a sieve? He didn't do anything on the sieves that Barry's got. Anyway, I'll leave it there. I was just disgruntled. If I was one of Barry's family, his son perhaps, and watching that, I'd be disappointed in the treatment of Barry's workmanship and skills.
Yeah, I think what Dave was trying to put forward was a lot of equipment for 90 watts of AM. You'd have to pretty well agree with that. And but certainly there was nothing wrong with that couldn't have been fixed and made 100% functional.
Well, perhaps he was trying to demonstrate how much iron and stuff you needed to put out a 100-watt signal. It was a bit over-engineered. You can fit a 100-watt transmitter in a thing that sits on the bench, but that's the way Barry did it. I think it was unfair to treat it that way. There you go. I'll put that on record and leave it there, Laurie.
Well, you've got full agreement from me on that, because I thought it was a little bit unkind as well.
Off they go. I haven't seen or heard, or I've no idea about what you're talking about, Laurie. I don't believe I will ever see it or read it, because I know what Barry was like and what his gear was like. As for over-engineering thing is concerned, he had these components available to him, so why not use them? Built like a brick outhouse, so what? Very, very reliable. Don't get hot and turn into flame or anything like that. And I've heard Barry on air for years and years and years and years and years, and his transmission, apart from a few blips, they were always perfectly clear. Very, very good quality. So. And as for the type connectors he was using, 700 volts through a Belling-Lee. When I hear Belling-Lee, I'm presuming that it's an old television coaxial connector, but maybe not. Anyway, what the hell? I know that Steve had a bit of trouble with the audio, or with the transmission when he first set the thing up in his place. I don't know. Pardon me. Was working fine when it was at Barry's.
Yeah, well, the video's on YouTube, and I suggest you do have a look at. I think Dave's point was the amount of equipment to get the 90 watts. So, you know, that was my sort of gut feeling, was that he thought was a bit of an overkill just to get 90 watts. And clearly, to be fair to Dave too, he did put the signal on the oscilloscope and there was clearly something very, very wrong with it. Have a look at the video yourself. It runs for a few minutes and you could see exactly, but I think Dave's point was more the fact the amount of equipment was there to create the 90 watts of AM more than anything else.
Yeah, no, I won't worry about looking at it. I know what a transmitter looked like, and I know what it sounded like. And if there was a spugly, I would venture to say that that spugly happened between the time it left Barry's place and was put on the air the next time. I'd say that's when it happened. Anyway, I'm not going to argue one way or the other because I can't be bothered. It's pointless. So there we are. It's 6 minutes past midday, Laurie. The sun has just come out again for about the 24th time, and I'm halfway through composing an email. One of these people who has quoted me on a new heating cooling installation. It's going to be a big sob story to them. Unfortunately, they're not going to get a job because my heater's working again, Laurie. My heater's working again. Major advance.
Well, Steve, you're going to need it this year because I reckon we're in for the fullest.